I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Hey, what's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like live right here. Well, I'm Jared Ball, your host. Happy to be back with you. Please do make sure you are all set up and good to go at imixwhatilike.org. And following at I Mix What I Like for all your relevant social media. Of course, liking, subscribing, and at least considering joining the channel here at the Emerging Black Power Media Collective, where, as you're starting to see already, it's starting to expand and there's so much more coming. So the more support we get, the more we all intend to do. It is a very collective and, again, expanding project. So check that out as well. Yeah, so before we get to our guest in here in just a minute, which I can't wait for, this is about to be exciting, or is exciting and is about to be dope, is a couple things coming up. So first of all, today, starting with, in just a moment with this live this morning, and then later today at 4 p.m. Eastern, I should say we have a full day here of President's Day commemorations, starting this morning, where we're going to be talking about the Reagan era and more. And then later today, we're going to be talking about some of the impacts or the responses to some of the impact of the Reagan era on Black communities and others, particularly in terms of incarceration, where we're going to be joined by two guests to talk about Jailhouse Lawyers Speak, that collective, Darren Mack and Jared Ware of Millennials. I should say Darren Mack, talking on behalf specifically as a formerly incarcerated spokesperson for Jailhouse Lawyers Speaks, and Jared Ware, one of the hosts and contributors to the very popular and very dope podcast, Millennials Are Killing Capitalism podcast. They'll be joining me here. That's 4 p.m. Eastern to talk about the prison organization or organizing of prisoners and those supporting prison abolitionism. And then at 5 o'clock, right after that, 5 p.m. Eastern, starts the Sound Clash, the Black Studies Matters series, Sound Clash Liberation Suite Battle of Black Music. So you don't want to miss that. There's going to be 4 or 5 of us on here. We have categories. You all will be asked to vote and select the winners. We have a poll system that we're going to use live and direct. So if you can be here at 5 p.m. Eastern for that, that is on this channel, you will be able to participate and vote in this, we're starting with music this morning. We're going to end with music this evening. I very much intend to win. My playlist, and it's all, categories talking about the diaspora, what radicalized us. We have various. Anyway, you know what? Let me take a quick second and share with you some of these categories. Let me just share with you some of these categories real quick. The song that played a part in developing your Black consciousness. An Africa song. A Black love song. Your strongest Bob Marley song. A non-Anglophone song. A song with spirituality as a major theme, a song about Black women, a revolutionary song by an artist who isn't known for that type of music, an instrumental song, a song that references enslavement, a song which references poverty, class, political economy, and more. There's going to be more. So you don't want to miss that. So we have there's going to be I think 5 of us that are going to be in this battle later on tonight, and like I said, I very much intend to win. Dr. Ichile has said she's going to win just with women artists. And then I started getting a little bold, saying I might win with just one woman artist. I did get bold and say that. I even said I might win with just one verse. I found a verse. Oh man, I was digital crate digging. I found a verse. I might win with just that. So don't miss that. So much more. Beyond that, we have a lot coming on the 17th. We're going to be making the official launch of the Black Power Media Collective with a whole bunch of people coming through. So you don't want to miss that. We just ran the 2nd episode of Dr. Sharice Burden-Stelly's The Last Dope Intellectual, which airs every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. So please, if you haven't, get on with that and share that. Let's see, on the 17th also, let's see, yeah, that's Wednesday. Earlier that evening, actually, we have we have a lot on the 17th. So at 8 o'clock that evening, we're going to be doing the Black Power Media launch. At 6 o'clock that evening, Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be doing the Blacklash Collective town hall on reparations then and there, then and now, here and there. The report is already up. So go to imixwhatilike.org. You can sign up for that. It's all free. You can sign up for that and get the report so you can come prepared. That's Wednesday night. That's at imixwhatilike.org. Let's see what else we have. I covered tonight, and I covered also, wait, is she here? Was that her popping up? Hold on a second. We might have to have a quick, hold on a second. We might have a quick breaking news thing. Okay, my bad. I thought we might have, excuse me, everybody. Sorry about that. We might have, okay, that's not her. Okay. Later today, in fact, at 11 o'clock this morning, just about when we're wrapping up here, Eastern Standard Time, Pam Africa and the Move Movement in Philly are going to be having a press conference about some breaking news around Mumia Abu-Jamal. So I had let her know that if she wanted to, that since we were going to be live, she could jump on. And I thought, anyway, I thought I heard the alert and saw her pop on. Anyway, so she might pop on to give us some updates on that. But if I have any, I'll certainly share them. But essentially, in fact, what I can do now is just the alert that came out last night was that Monday, February 15th, community protest to condemn DA Krasner's continued frame-up of journalist Mumia Abu-Jamal. Larry Krasner, Philadelphia's so-called progressive DA, filed legal brief on February 3rd, denying Mumia Abu-Jamal the right to prove his innocence, following in the steps of Lynn Abraham, Ron Castillo, Seth Williams, and other notoriously corrupt DAs. Krasner's legal brief argues against any new hearings that might bring to light of day any new evidence that has never been considered in a court of law since the 1981 trial. In effect, Krasner's 125-page brief puts in his seal of approval on the outrageously racist actions of Judge Sabo, who was heard to say, quote, "I'm going to help frame the N-word," end quote. In addition, Krasner knows there is new evidence. He was the one who found the 6 hidden boxes of exculpatory evidence that exposes the prosecution's misconduct. Instead of considering all of the evidence that has been gathered since the 1981 trial, Krasner is basing his line of arguments on fabrications and lies that helped to unfairly convict Mumia in the first place. With his legal action, Krasner is attempting to continue to the judicial, police, and prosecutorial misconduct that convicted an innocent Black journalist almost 4 decades ago. Krasner's office is refusing to acknowledge that similar misconduct that exonerated 18 other innocent men also applies to Abu-Jamal's case. Release Mumia now will be the cry as community activists protest outside the DA's office on Monday, February 15th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm calling a press conference tomorrow at 11 a.m. in front of DA office, shining a floodlight on his upholding Krasner. I released this info to Mike Cord Show. Can't wait for a meeting to talk about it. All right, well, so that's from Pam Africa. So hopefully, well, hopefully folks can follow up on that. And if she feels the need or the ability or the desire, she'll jump on with us at any time that she likes. Okay. Sorry about any delay. Just a couple, I think one more thing, B-Tag. Oh, it's shaping up nicely on February 21st. The annual or an annual, not to commemorate, but to critically review, for lack of a better phrase or word in a moment, the assassination of Malcolm X. Those of us who were contributors to a live reinvention, Correcting Manning Marable's Malcolm X, are going to be gathering here to talk about not only that book, but the purpose of the book and any updates. So there's a bunch of books coming through from Paul Coates, the publisher of Black Classic Press, all the way down to yours truly and my co-editor, Dr. Todd Stephen Burrows, and several others. And anyway, maybe some surprises, or who knows who might pop up for that. By the way, speaking of which, Mumia Abu-Jamal was a contributor to that book with his own never before published essay, his review 2.0 of Marable's book, in which he refers to it as quote unquote tragic in the way in which that book obliterates the context and ignores COINTELPRO. All right, so much coming up here is the point. So please stick around as much as possible. Come back, like, share, support, join, all of that good stuff, and we'll keep it going. But that said, I want to turn that to our next guest, longtime hip hop artist, someone who when I used to leave the house, and we used to all be able to leave the house, I would, run into, see performances of, have been following his music of, and have had the honor of in some small way contributing to a project of his that we're going to talk about in just a moment, specifically the Reagan era, and even more specifically, I'm talking about DC's own, but beyond, the world's own Enoch 7th Prophet. Welcome, brother, to the program. It's good to see you, man. Thank you for joining me.
Peace, man. Peace. Can you hear me?
I can hear you quite well.
Cool. Yeah. Peace, man. Thank you for having me. I definitely appreciate this moment.
No, man. No, the honor is mine, man. It's a long time coming. And like I said, it used to be for, I talk about it, somewhat jokingly, but when I used to leave the house, and when we used to all be able to leave the house,
right.
Your performances, your shows are always, among my favorite to see. And it's obviously it's good to see that you're still rocking, and it's good to see that so many new projects have been coming out over the last few months. That I definitely want to talk with you about, specifically the moment, which I want to come back to, but also the one just before that, the Reagan era, because I think it speaks to so many. But before we get to any of that, there's a couple things I want us to get to, just to get some background out, and so when we hear Enoch 7th Prophet, so my first question for you is just simply, what's in a name? What do we need to know for those who aren't aware of what's in the name?
Right. So what's in the name? Let me just first start off and say, I give thanks for you, and I appreciate, all the hard work you put in the community and beyond, because I've been a fan of yours for a minute, supporter of yours for a while. Every time I see you, I'm like, there's Jared. What's up, man? And I've always had a, great conversation with you, and it's good to see good people, and I definitely appreciate that. What's in the name? What's in the name is, when you're an MC and when you become an artist, you want to find that name that resonates. You want to find a name with a meaning and a purpose, so you can develop your artistry, if I were to say, so you can develop it in a certain way. So Enoch is the 7th seed of Abraham, for those who follow it like that. Enoch is the Enoch in another term is Metatron. That's where they get the word Megatron from Transformers. Enoch 7th prophet, I added the 7th prophet to it because all of us are prophets in our own right. When we start to write, we be prolific when we write and things of that nature. Also, 7th prophet, if you drop the T in my last name is Stevenson. So if you drop the T in my last name, it's 7th son. So me being Enoch 7th prophet, I just creatively did it like that. So when people ask like, hey, where did you get the name Enoch 7th prophet from? That's where I start at. And another term for Enoch would be Adafa, or Idris, if for those who are in the Muslim community. And Enoch was the one who walked with God. He didn't have to die. He didn't have to wait his turn or anything of that nature. He and Elijah was the only ones in scripture that were taken up. So I say, well, I walk with God daily. So I shouldn't have to wait to die to do that. So let me do that now. So with that purpose being said, that's how I started to set off my rhymes and things to be creatively in line with the prophet Enoch, if I could. But yeah, that's where that name came from. It was given to me by a brother by the name of Freedom Black. I stepped off the bus. We were in, I believe we were in Augusta or South Carolina, one of the two. And I stepped off the Greyhound bus, and he was like, "Yo, man, you look like a Dafa." I'm like, "Who the hell is a Dafa?" So he was like, "Are you still reading?" I was reading a certain book. I was reading the Holy Tablets at that time. He was like, "Have you gotten to that chapter yet?" I was like, "Nah." He's like, "Well, when you get to that chapter, you'll know who I'm talking about." And at that time, I was growing locks. I was growing my beard. So it was all fitting. And he saw it. So when I got to that book, when I got to that chapter, Dafa, I was like, this is what he's talking about. So that it's just stuck. And we just rolled.
You said you were getting off the bus down south, but as we're going to come back to, because I definitely want to talk about the scene and the history from your perspective. You are coming from DC.
Right.
That this story of yours starts there. So and though mine broke off, early on, that's where mine starts as well. So that's where anyway. So that's anyways. Some of the background. Yeah. If I sometimes forget that YouTube is beyond DC in the DC Maryland area.
yeah, I kind of forget that too. It's all good. It's all good.
And then the next thing in terms of just some quick background also is we hear a lot of references to chakra music. So talk about chakra music both in name and literal function.
Right. So chakra music, for those who are in tune with the chakras and yoga and things of that nature, you have seven chakra points, major chakra points in your system that controls all of your emotions. Like for instance, you are throat chakra, you speak truth all the time. So if your voice gets a little sore or your vocal cords gets a little sore, it's because you are holding back some type of truth. So therefore you have to release it. You have to release that particular truth so you can heal your throat chakra. If you have a headache, you may be, this is your brow chakra and this is your third eye. So your third eye may be closed. The wheels may not be turning as they should be. So you need to free your mind. You need to relax, drink some water and stop, concentrating on things you can't control. And then that will relieve your headache. So each chakra deals with colors. So your fifth chakra will be blue. It would always be blue. So I incorporated that philosophy into the music. So I tell people like I don't do hip hop music. I do chakra music. So that's a talking point. Like, what do you mean? Like my music is emotional. I want to touch one of your emotions, whether it's your heart, your mind, your root, your crown. I want to touch those emotions so you could feel a certain way. So you could feel what I'm feeling when I'm writing or when I'm performing. So we just incorporated chakra music as a label because we realized that's the music that we're getting across. It's emotional hip hop. It's something that you could feel, that you can go back to, and that would keep you thinking, but it's also emotional. So that's why we call it now chakra music.
Right on. All right, so I do want to. I am anxious and excited to get to specifically to talk about your work and some of this through this project of the Reagan era. So what I want to do is just just so if folks hadn't had a chance or just need the quick refresher, I just wanted to pull this up before we get to anything.
Okay.
And let's check this out real quick. In fact, I need to stop and do that again to make sure we can hear it. And then, yeah, there we go. But it's a quick intro to the project. I think it is dope. So let's check this out real quick.
Reagan era turned Chakra City to the drug game. Crack rock white. Reagan era turned Chakra City to the drug game. Crack rock white. Reagan era.
I'm a 70s baby, raised in the 80s mama. Heard Reagan speak on the Iran and Contra drama. Grannies praying to the Lord, hoping my mom's comes home safe and don't end up in the morgue. DC drug warlords, smorgasbord, fork in the road, all you can eat. City never sleeps till the street lights come on and fiends run like roaches, hoping, scoping for the next crumb to jump on. Fiends in the 80s, raised crack babies, moved in with granny. Life wasn't fancy, still had bread in the pantry, making miracles out of nothing to provide something. Red-headed youngin', Washingtonian native, pops never made it. Mom still here though, second generation. I respect that, like being young, black, and gifted. Rosalie taught me that. On any given Sunday, find me in the church playing drums for the choir. I'm inspired to never run with the bad boys in the neighborhood, or I will expire. Coke supplier, burn by the fire, reach higher, designer clothes, dream deferred, burn a hole in your nose, life blows. Curtis, eating church's chicken, Gino's finger licking, getting whoopers in public.
Reagan era turned Chakra City to the drug game. Crack rock white. Reagan era turned Chakra City to the drug game. Crack rock white. Reagan.
Woo! I love that. I love it. I love it. In sound, in verse, in image, in 2 minutes. I mean, there's just so much evoked in it. To your point about the emotions, I mean,
yes.
It's all dragged out. Like I'm
yeah, it's all dragged out. Yep, absolutely. A big up to UI Visuals, who actually shot that visual. Yeah, man, it was dope. Even he said I made it easy for him because it was so easy for him to edit it because I was already putting the pictures to the video already. So he was just like, yo, it's Enoch, you made it easy for me to edit. I believe that day that we shot that's crazy, the day that we shot that, it was the first Trump rally when we shot that. And because we wasn't thinking, like, we was just like, all right, we about to go shoot this video because for the Reagan era, this is our concept, this is where we gonna go. We drove and the location was going to be in the middle of Georgetown, because during that time I always think about, first of all, I wrote Reagan era. I wrote that song walking up and down Georgetown, like late at night. I was walking up. I was like, yo, the beat feels like DC. It feels cold. It feels like Hustlers. It feels like crack. It feels like Reagan. Because at that moment, that's how I was feeling to me. And I was like, yo, we need to go shoot the video in front of Princess and Princesses and further down, because I knew that's where all the hustlers went. They went to Princess and Princesses to get their gear. They were probably shut down. Rayful Edmonds. Like, I was just thinking about all these things. And we was driving and I was just like, what are all these people doing out here? I had to go to my phone. I was like, oh, damn, it's the Trump rally. We couldn't get to where we wanted to go. So we had to find other means to, places to shoot that video. But it was, I thought it was dope. It added a little feel to it when I realized like, hey, they protesting today. So hey, we gonna shoot this video.
No, I mean it works. I mean, and I mean even the name. I mean Rayful Edmonds. I mean all these names. I mean it's just so many. Yeah, that reference alone it brings back. I mean, just talk for a second about what it was to be growing up in DC or alive and you know coming up in the Reagan era in DC. Why would, after all of these years, I mean, the man, I mean, he's been dead I don't know how many years. I know he's evoked all the time, but you know, we've had so many other presidents now. We've had, you know, so many other things happening.
Right.
Why would the Reagan era still be so prevalent in your mind or in your, you know, in your heart or wherever to the point where you would want to make a project reflecting that?
Good question, because when 4-5 was first elected and he became president, I said to myself, I just watched it. I didn't really talk too much after he was like elected president. I watched everybody else talk. I was just, you know, in my own space. And then I started to watch how the opioids start to like be prevalent. It started to grow in the communities and things of that nature. And, you know, white folks were worried about it. And then there was so much healing in the process of, we need to get these people healed because they're on opioids, like, you know, because it started to hit the white community. So now it was so prevalent that they needed to go out there and say no to drugs and do all these things. And I'm like, well, what happened when black folks was on crack and dope?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Who came to, you know, we were condemned for it. We were like, we were really condemned for it. We was just like, they're gonna die out, the black community, we're not gonna help them. So I said, you know what? This feels like the Reagan era. No one understood what I meant. And I was like, I had to explain myself like, hey, in the 80s, crack was high. Black folk were dying on crack and coke and drugs and things of that nature. And now look, 4/5 is in, and now opioids is skyrocketed. I said, then I started to see like some people in our community, you know, just fading out, falling by the wayside, or, you know, smoking K2 and things of that nature. And I was just like, this feels like the Reagan era, dude. This feels like the Reagan era. And that's how the project began, because I started to go back into my mind of the Reagan era. You know, what I saw my grandma doing, what I saw my mother doing, what I saw my father doing. I was just like, this project needs to come out. You know, and I just took a chance on it. We just took a chance on the project because I started writing that project, man, in 2018, 2019. And I stopped because there were other projects that I was rushing to do and trying to put out before that Reagan era project. And I just wanted to take people back and like, this same thing is still here. And we're going to make the music to make you feel that crack era. We want to make the music to feel like you in the old 80s, you in the old DC. I want people to feel that energy. So when Reagan era was written, I had to start it off as, I'm a 70s baby raised in the 80s mama, because people think that if you're born in the 80s, you're an 80s baby. You're not.
No, that's right. Good point.
You're a 90s baby because you don't remember nothing from the 80s. You were born in 82. You were a 90s baby. I'm sorry. You know, I was born in the 70s, so I was raised in the 80s. So therefore, things I remember from the 80s. You know, I remember my grandma watching Reagan on TV. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, and I can hear her in the background, like, this guy is crazy. I don't know what oh Lord, please save us. Like, she was in that mode. And I was trying to figure out, why you in that mode? It's supposed to be our president. But as I got older, I was like, oh yeah, you a jerk. You a jerk. Like, that's what I was thinking. So, you know, my mom and dad, both were on drugs, you know, real hard. My mom was on crack. You know, my dad was a hustler. you know, and he was like a big hustler in DC. So he wasn't as big as those who got locked up, but he was one of those cats. So I just remember just, you know, staying with my grandmother, you know, living with my mom's at times, but then always being at grandma's house. You know, fiends in the 80s, raised crack babies, moved in with granny. Life wasn't fancy. You know what I'm saying? So these are things that resonated with me. That's why I call it Reagan era, because I want to take the listener through my mind, through it's like an autobiography of me, but it's still the Reagan era when we put it all in context, especially 720.
Well, what do you mean by that? What do you mean? What was?
It's a song on the Reagan era project called 720. Excuse me. And it talks about I call it 720 because if you Google 720, 88, or 89, there's some things about Ronald Reagan would come up, right? And I call it 720 on the highway, and it was just talking about how Reagan era then like messed up the game. Black families are not the same. You know what I'm saying? And then I started talking about my dad, but it was so subliminal that you probably thought I was talking about a fictitious character, but I was actually talking about my dad. You know, the verse is 720 on the highway. Reagan era then fucked up the game. Black families are not the same. Hey, you know, they bring in guns and dopes on boats and planes and ships. That's what I was saying in the verse. And I broke it down because the story was actually true. It was an actually true story that I was told to me by my grandmother on my father's side. You know, my dad was found in an empty building with like needles in his arm, or a needle in his arm. And when you listen to the song, it still speaks Reagan, still speaks that era, because he died in Reagan era. You know, my mom is still here. She survived it. You know, she's going through some other physical things, because once you get off that for years, your body kind of like starts to collapse on you. When you do drugs and things, and your body starts to really collapse on you. So 720 was very important to me because that was the Reagan era. That I grew up in that era. I seen it. I seen my mom on dope. I seen my daddy, you know, hustling and telling my mom, don't bring him around here no more until I call you, type of thing, because that's how bad it was. So if you ever get a chance to listen to the album, 720 is one of the dopest songs I think I wrote thus far for that project, because it was so intimate.
I mean, again, there's a lot there. And in fact, I want to come back to some of that in another way to maybe talk about some more of that context. But if you don't mind, I want to because you invited folks to call in with their thoughts to try to support the development of the project, and I tried to do it. I'm gonna play it anyway. You honored me with a little bit of editing, but you know, I always appreciate when I get included on somebody's, you know, like Head Rock or Cornell West Theory. Like I actually like I keep these, you know, I get to make these little cameos everyone, and it's like an honor, you know, as a former wannabe MC. And you talked about drumming in your project too.
Yes,
in that track.
Yeah,
you know, I'm a former wannabe drummer. I didn't grow up in the church, but I love gospel music.
Right.
You know, I'm a vicious in the car by myself freestyler.
Oh yeah,
man,
definitely.
When no one can hear me, I'm nice. You know what I'm saying?
That's how it all start, though. That's how it all start.
So, but it doesn't often come out the way I wanted to. But I do appreciate what you were trying to do here. So let me just share this real quick.
Okay.
And we'll come back to it.
Reagan's election over Jimmy Carter was met with a lot of the same reaction that people had more recently when Trump got elected. And it's no coincidence that Trump took Reagan's line of Make America Great Again. It's in that context that I first came into an understanding that Reagan represented some even worse than Carter, worse than already established. Ronald Reagan died on June 5th, 2004. And the reason I know that is because he died during my wedding to my wife. And during that moment, we took a quick break and I raised the glass and said, we take credit for helping usher that man out of here. And for anybody who thinks that that's too harsh, they just need to look at the history of Ronald Reagan, the man, and the politics he represents.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it being included on that, and I hate that I didn't get it out clearly, but when I tell that story, man, a lot of times, even when I hear myself telling it honestly, it's a little bit uncomfortable. But the reality is that if people don't understand the extent to which this man was despised,
right,
and for instance, my mother grew up in New York and was in the acting community, the theater community. In fact, rest in peace. She shared a class with the late Cicely Tyson. So like that was one of the highlights that I remember her telling me about. But my mother remembered from the acting community the fact that Reagan, who had formerly been an actor, had been used to speak out against healthcare, socialism. I mean, he'd been used by the industry and his popularity in film as Gil Scott Heron called him, Ronnie Reagan, B movie. I mean, he was a B movie star, but They used that. So my mother had already hated him from his anti-labor, anti-progressive, his abuse of his position as an actor. So she already had that. And then when he got elected, and, never mind when, his whole anti-Panther thing as governor of California. I mean, this man had such a long, horrific history. And then when he got elected, I remember being a kid, because your point, born in 1971. So when he's elected, I'm 9 years old. Mm-hmm. And I remember the moment my mother was watching this on TV, and she just was shook. I don't even remember seeing her look like that. She was shook. She's just like, I know what this is going to mean. She was supportive of the ERA at the time, the Equal Rights Amendment thing at the time. So all of these things that she wanted to support, he was a symbol of the most, he was the Trump of that era, which is why, anyway. So when we were at our wedding and the word came out, I was like, because I was in such a happy, joyous mood. You know what I mean? Certainly the news wasn't going to dampen the moment, but, so I was just like, anyway. So anyway, but I'll feel free to respond to any of that, but I want to pull up a couple of things also that I think will help amplify some of what I and you have been talking about, just a few examples before we do move on. But go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Because during that time, let's go back to the voice message. I had everyone to leave a voice message of how did you survive the Reagan era? I believe the message was basically, leave a message of how the Reagan era infected you.
That's right.
Right. Some people left messages that was like, I have no issues with the Reagan era. I was living good. I don't know too much about, my other friends and that, but my household, we were great. And I was like, okay, that's a good experience to know. Then everyone else was leaving, other messages. With that being said, the hook that you hear on Reagan era, the song Reagan era turned Chocolate City, to the drug game, crack a rock. He said that was a insert from one of the voice messages that was left. So when I sent all of the voice messages to King C, who produced the whole project, he sent the music back to me with that hook already in it. And I said, oh, you didn't change the whole dynamics of this. So we were getting people to actually call in so I can hear what their experience was, so I can in so many words tap back into that moment. Tap back into that moment, your experience. When I see you, and we have that. Matter of fact, when I saw you at the forgot we was on U Street at the was it the African Memorial? No, it was at the I seen you somewhere, and it was an event, and you came through, and I was like, yo, I need you to call in for this, boom, boom, boom. And you started telling me that story again. And every time you tell that story, like it's almost like you light up. It's just like, yo, I remember. And and it's like, I heard your inflictions when you got to that moment. And I was like, yeah, this is the moment that I want, because your vibration raised up and was just like, yeah, some people may say it's wrong, but
I mean, he was just such a. I mean, there are other like personal things that that are admittedly more autobiographical than I would want but like for instance, seeing one of the last public images I believe the scene of my father was getting arrested protesting Reagan era South Africa pro apartheid policies. Stuff like that, like he was from my whole childhood, he was the backdrop of so much negativity. I was just showing some of the video of him changing the laws to attack, in response to Panthers, carrying guns to the State House.
Right.
I mean, he even going back, just as a labor movement guy, like, if you even go back and watch Michael Moore's first film, Roger and Me, that whole thing is about Reagan era destruction of the auto industry and working people. His stance against the airline auto. I mean, so all of this stuff, like this dude, and then just one other piece I'll bring up, and then feel free, I'll do it while you respond, is something that I thought was funny to kind of be reminded of in this piece here, hip hop's artistic holy war against Reagan, where Ann Brown, the author here, I think does a very good job of reminding us, of the era again that you correctly, point out, was not only the sort of the birth of hip hop, but our own childhoods. Like this dude, he inspired so much art. So we grew up. I grew up in art telling us about how he was the boogeyman.
Yeah, absolutely. 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 You just growing up hearing about, from your elders in your family to the music that was now being developed through that process. And you realize, he was like, if Chuck D said it so eloquently, he said that hip hop is the voice of the Black community. Hip hop is the voice. So if we're the voice and we're speaking out against Reagan, then we have done our research. We have done our research and we have lived the moment of it. So living the moment, seeing your dad or your family members or whomever on drugs and dope and getting locked up and reading about the Panthers and doing this and doing that. And then you look at 2021 and 2020, it's almost the same thing. It's just that you're wearing a mask now.
Look, I'm always discouraged, honestly, from bringing this up, but the reality is, I didn't even make it out of the '80s without a brief grapple with that crack rock. So I know intimately, firsthand. So whenever I would see, to this day, whenever I see people who are just dismissed as junkies, I'm like, I get it. Okay. That Rick James wasn't playing. It's a hell of a drug, man.
It's a hell of a drug.
I mean, and that feeling, it is that, particularly that first feeling, it is never reachable. It is never again attainable. So you hit literally, well, pun intended, you hit a height that can never again be reached. It can never again be felt. And it is to this day. I mean, it's been, I don't know, this is the late 80s. So how many years is this? 30 years ago. And
Yep.
I'm 30 plus years ago, and I'm still remembering or having visions of the memory of what that was. And I mean, it's just
Hey, look.
So I mean, damn. I mean, so I blame him for that too.
Right. So even what you have up now when it talks about, in 82,
Grandmaster Flash. That's right.
Grandmaster Flash. You know what I'm saying? He was actually telling how people were living in the hood, in the inner cities. Like everything was shut down.
And just quickly, I wasn't even in the hood. I just want to be clear. So when this happened to me, this is sort of my point. It spilled over.
It did
into those of us in the whatever the Section 8 suburbs as I grew up in, or whatever. It spills over.
Yeah.
Or those who would hang out and come through DC, or that would be the center of our whatever. That, I mean, it was. So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah, man, I mean, that was
because like you said, it spilled off, and from the inner city, it spilled off into the suburbs, and it still reached Black people regardless. Because if you were connected, if you knew somebody who was using drugs or on drugs or just got locked up, they were still connected to somebody you knew.
That's
so
right.
The ball just kept rolling, and for Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five to just write that song, it was just like, ooh, this is the standard. Like, okay, this is what social political hip hop is. This is where it started at. So
I mean, even the non-political rappers like Jay-Z had tracks about I blame Reagan for making me into a monster. Wale, Kanye West, these are even more recent MCs. Kendrick Lamar, Killer Mike. All these references. Anyway, I mean, it was just a quick reference. There's so many more.
There's so many more artists who did that.
Certainly, Public Enemy's whole entry point. Once they got after, I think that initial, because I think their first one, my '98 Booming with a Trunk of Funk, wasn't particularly political, but once they entered into that space, I mean, it was all in response to anyway, there was just so much more, but I just wanted to quickly show that one. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I mean, I quickly showed earlier the Panama invasion that he's often at least credited with inspiring and laying the groundwork for. His support for, obviously, the whole crack piece is the whole Iran-Contra scandal.
Yeah, the war on drugs, things
the war on drugs, all of that. Nancy Reagan, Nancy Reagan with the whole, just say no. I mean, it was, yeah.
And for they to use Nancy was good in a sense, because now they was trying to, for them politically and publicly, to remove Ronald from it, because of course he probably knew he was getting the heat because he was hearing the heat. So let's put Nancy in front, because Nancy is a little more like the world's grandma or the world's mom in a sense. But she was a huge force behind the war on drugs too. Say no to drugs.
Oh, no question.
I remember, the police coming to the school telling us to say no to drugs, and this is your brain on drugs, frying the egg. Like,
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So it was already in our minds that dope was bad, but also it was in our minds too that as we started to get older, that these guys wasn't for us. They was trying to get rid of us.
And their response to it is silly. So I mean, like even as obviously we would be, we talked about hip hop. It would be ridiculous for me not to mention that even in go-go music, there was a lot of, Beat Me Up, Scotty. There were all kinds of references to the crack game and its impact on people in the community. So even those of us who were just, again, on the periphery and even in the suburbs who were still listening to go-go, we were still hearing all of this discussion, about what it was and what it was doing. Anyway, quickly, I just want to also, again, shout out, our sister Margaret Kimberly in her book Prejudential for her chapter on Reagan, because the book is, Black America and the Presidents. And she reminds us of things like the he denounced the 64 Civil Rights Act and the 65 Voting Rights Act. He announced his presidency in Philadelphia, Mississippi, which was, of course, the famous site of the killings of Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney. I mentioned the whole thing about the calling the African representatives monkeys. The welfare queen piece, associating all of this. I mean, I mean, it's just anyway. It just goes on and on and on.
Because you know what, when I was doing the research for this project, of course, being an artist and want to write well, I do a lot of research. I go down the rabbit hole of YouTube like crazy. I just go down the rabbit hole. I found this clip of Reagan talking to a group of children. It was broadcast live too, talking to a group of children. And this young black sister stood up and said, she had a question. Her question was, in so many words, what are you going to do for the black community? And so many questions, that was in so many words, that was a question, her question to him. And he said something that was like, not directed toward, it was directed towards her, but it was subliminal. It was basically saying, I've did this, I've did that, you people have to do this and do that. He was just using like you people. He was just using these terms that was just trying to belittle the little girl. But she stood her ground and she just stood there and listened to him. And I could see the look on her face like, you're not even answering my question. You people, I need to pull up bootstraps and things of that nature, do it on your own. You don't need, government assistance. And he was just going in. And I'm like, damn, you're talking to, she might have been like maybe 12 or 13, but she was on her square that day. And she was just, look, answer my question or nah. But they cut from that. And then I think they kind of like went to a commercial and went to another piece of the YouTube clip anyway. Sure. But there were things that I was just gathering, trying to remember certain things, like when Ronald Reagan the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan, when him and Jesse Jackson became homeboys in a sense. And I'm like, damn.
Yeah, that was deep too. That whole thing. First of all, I'm just going to say I got to shamelessly plug the discussion we had with Mr. Tom Porter about Jesse Jackson and his political campaigns at IMixWhatILike.org. I would encourage people to check that out because that's a trip. But I even in talking about doing research and preparing just for this morning, I found that there's a conservative group still using Ronald Reagan's what was called Operation Coffee Cup. These recordings that he used to promote or to try to block what would become known as Medicare. He was trying to block the expansion of Social Security by, basically saying it's an encroachment of, the communists, whatever, and all this other stuff. And people are still using that to this day in their efforts to try to walk back Medicare and Social Security and all this other kind of stuff. So anyway, so he's still in the mix, even as people,
what was that? 30? You said 2000, was it 2004 he passed? He died?
2004, yep.
So what's
that's
that?
16 years coming up. Mm-hmm.
And we're still talking about him. That, and that's a impactful person that we continue to talk about to this day. Mm-hmm. The impactful people that we continue to talk about is Christopher Columbus. The impactful people we tend to talk about is Abraham Lincoln. The people we continue to talk about is Reagan. And just watching the development of the election, they were bringing Reagan's name up every time.
Yep, that's right.
And I'm like, this has to be a correlation because both of them were TV actors.
They're both actors. That's right.
They're both actors.
Yep.
And as you mentioned, Reagan was on that slogan, "Make America, make America great."
Make America great. That's right.
Trump came along and said, "Make America great again."
Yep.
And everyone thought, and everyone's thinking like, oh, that's Trump saying that's his. Like, nah, that's Reagan. So they had to, the media had to tie that in with Trump because he was on that platform. Reagan wasn't as in your face as much, but Trump was more in your face. But Reagan was just like doing slide type of stuff that just to keep the pressure on us. And it's crazy. I think we still in the Reagan era. We can always talk about
no
it.
question. Right on. Well said. Only because I see us moving towards an hour here, I want to at least and I for reasons already covered, the concept of the Reagan era, beyond just your great work is emotional and attractive in terms of attention and focus. But there are a couple other things I at least want to bring up before we get out of here, which is one, your latest project, which I believe is called The Movement. Or correct me if I'm missing something there.
One moment, please.
Yes.
That's the name of the project.
Oh. So I wrote down The Movement for some reason, and then you said one moment, please. I was like, what is he about to say?
No, that's the name of the latest project is One Moment, Please.
My apologies.
It's all good. It's all good.
And you know what? That's right, because that's why I even titled this The Moment of the Reagan Era. So I had it right initially, and then in my notes here I wrote it wrong. So okay, I was at least so
it's all good. Trust me, it's all, even when we put out the project, A Minute of Your Time, everybody was saying a minute or more, or a minute something.
Right.
And I was like, nah, it's called A Minute of Your Time. But One Moment, Please, that's the newest project.
I keep joking with him, man, and please forgive me for saying it out here, but I keep joking. The great economist Derek Hamilton, he slipped up once and called me Dr. Bell. And he's been so apologetic ever since. And I keep messing with him because I said I was trying to, I was like, you don't understand how often that happens. There's something cognitively that people don't, for whatever reason, Ball is a struggle. And people, even when they have typed my name, Jared Ball, they'll say, thanks again, Jared Bell or Mr. Bell or what. So there's something in there. So that, I don't know, maybe there's anyway, we all have our little,
all have
cognitive blind spots.
Like some people would say Enoch the 7th prophet. And I'm like, no, it's just Enoch 7th prophet. Don't have to put the in it.
I think I had that right today. I was careful. I was checking on that too. I was like, don't say the because it's tempting.
Yeah, it is. It is very tempting. It's just trying
but yeah, you got to get these things
outside
correct.
The box. Yeah, definitely.
So a moment, please. One moment, please.
There you go. Yeah.
So tell us about that. And then, but I also, and we can come back to it, but before, I just want to throw it out there before I forget, but I definitely want to also talk about, let me ask it this way. I wanted to ask you to talk a little about the DC hip hop scene and in its history and your relationship to it. So if I can phrase it this way, talk about One Moment, please, in the context of your career in this hip hop community. I don't even know if that I may be trying to build too many bridges here.
No,
if not,
I think I got you. One Moment, Please would definitely be in that context of DC community hip or in the DC scene, because as I get older, there's a lot of newer artists that's coming up on the scene too, that I may know, that I may not know. There's a lot of things in the hip hop scene that's changing. So I have to insert myself in there somewhere again, so we can continue to, be seen and be heard. And One Moment, Please is just that. Give me one moment of your time to listen to this project. One Moment, Please is a very short piece, maybe a minute or more. It's coattailing off of A Minute of Your Time, which that particular project was just, each song was just 1 minute or less, because we all have a short attention span. So I try to push everything onto Instagram for 1 minute. So all the videos are 1 minute. One Moment, Please goes into the fashion of DC hip hop because we just need a moment. We just need a moment to so you can hear us. Whether you are in DC, Maryland, Virginia, worldwide, Europe, Africa, we just need a moment because hip hop is still prevalent. Hip hop is still speaking to the people. So I need one moment. While you listen to all this other stuff that's going on in hip hop, I just need one moment to let you know where I stand in this community, DC hip hop community. So basically, if we wanted to tie it in like that, that's how I would tie it in. Just one moment, because you know the first impressions are you just need a minute for somebody to pick you out. Like, oh yeah, Jared. Oh yeah, I met him. We only talked for maybe a couple of seconds. But yeah, he a cool dude. Sometimes that's what people need. So I didn't want to bombard you with a 40-minute album, because I'm not listening to 40-minute albums anymore. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to tie it in like that, like just one moment, please. And I'm not going to take that long. So yeah,
right on. That's dope. So you real quick, well, not necessarily real quick, but it did. I should. I don't know why I didn't think to ask this before, but you mentioned DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and this came up. I asked Tim Hicks and Hetty when they were on. Where are you on this whole concept of the DMV? Do you have a position on it? Any particular position on it? Because anyway, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, here's what I say. If you are in DC, you're a DC artist. You can't live in 3 places at one time. You're either Maryland, DC, or Virginia. When they say, no disrespect to those who coined that phrase of DMV hip hop, but I think they did that so we can come together under one umbrella as artists, because DC artists always get overlooked. It's something political. Of course, we know about DC. That's why a lot of artists, they pick and choose the artists they want to pull out to be that poster child for DC hip hop or hip hop in general. So if you live in DC, you're a DC artist. Just know your history of the DC artist. Know the history of DC artists. If you in Maryland, don't be ashamed that you live in Maryland. It's cool. You know what I mean? It's all right. I went to school in Maryland. I went to Springbrook High School. It's okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's okay that you're from Maryland or Baltimore. It's okay you're from Virginia. You know what I'm saying? But know who paved the way for you in your area. You know what I mean? So when people ask me, hey, where you from? I'm from DC. Where you live at now? You know what I mean? So we can go through all those things, but I don't really have a preference anymore, man. That we got other fish to fry in a sense.
I hear that. Just curious.
Yeah.
The other thing that I definitely wanted to bring up is because I was always shocked when Hetty told me, for instance, that he didn't grow up loving go-go the way I would have expected, or I would just always assume any of I can't talk about DC without bringing up go-go, and eventually at some point I want to. I mean, we have a pretty good set of interviews that I did with Bashi Rose with some go-go heads, and we got to start doing more with that. But
yeah,
but what do you have a relationship with go-go? Just coming up in DC, like what is anyway?
I love go-go, man.
Mm-hmm.
I love go-go because I'm a musician first before I was even an MC. So playing drums in the church for the choir, being one of like the youngest drummers in the gospel community,
right.
Being with my mom and singing and stuff like that, being one of the youngest gospel drummers in the community, I've seen a lot of drummers, conga players and everything. So when I first heard go-go, I think it was from Chuck Brown, and I was like, ooh, I like this. And then listen to the other Backyard, Red Essence, things of that nature. That's DC. So I'll listen to go-go. I can't listen to it for like 2 hours, 3 hours. Like some of my, my man he can listen to that joint all day. I can't listen to it for like 2 or 3 hours, because for me, it's like a palette. It's like, okay, I want to listen to some go-go today. For me, I just can't sit down and start playing go-go because I have to be in that mood to listen to it. Just like I got to be in that mood to listen to Sun Ra. I just can't sit down and listen to Sun Ra. I got to be in the mood to listen to Miles Davis. I just can't sit down and boop, let me listen to some Miles Davis. But I love go-go because that's the heartbeat of the city, and that's where it all started from. And then when they start incorporating like Ice Cube and Yo-Yo and you know, the place they used to be, they used to do this live go-go out in the park. And I believe Ice Cube came.
I mean,
what was that at? Oh man.
I mean, they used to do it at Georgia Avenue Park. Georgia Avenue Park. They used to do it at
They used to do it a lot.
Yeah, I know, man.
Yeah.
Oh man.
They
That's
brought
terrible.
Ice Cube, Scarface. I can't remember the name of that place, but I love it.
You know, Slick Rick came through. I mean, everybody would come. Dougie Fresh has come through.
Dougie Fresh.
You know, they had. I mean, everybody. Scarface. I don't know if you mentioned him. He's come through and been on go-go tracks. I mean, there's been, you know. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
The crazy thing is that hip hop has always been in DC. It's just been masked in the go-go. DC Scorpio, Tony Blunt, Fat Rodney, like these are things that has already been migrated with our sound. We wasn't on the sampling. Like if you were rapping back then, you was a Bama, like you trying to be from New York, you know what I mean? Or these are, you know, you trying to be this and that. But rapping was always in the frame of go-go. It was just masked, and it wasn't called hip hop. It was called go-go. So
and Wilmer's Park, by the way, I had to look that up to be reminded. I couldn't believe that was terrible. Wilmer's Park.
Wilmer's Park. And we used to get all the tapes too. Like we used to get the
absolutely.
Tapes. And it was the same thing New York was doing with like WBLS or whatever have you.
With the mixtape, absolutely. The PA tape. Even out here in Howard County, I would get them passed the same way mixtapes would be passed. So we, you know, Trouble Funk,
Essence, Junkyard,
of course, Essence,
Backyard.
Junkyard, Backyard, all of them, you know, for, you know, I mean, anyway, so anytime I need to feel good, I'll throw on the Pocket. I have no problem. And particularly when they do like, you know, the old school stuff, I'll listen to that for hours. And in fact, you know, hopefully it'll time out in September. I'm going to turn 50, and I intend, if at all possible, and of course safe, and if they're doing it, I intend to celebrate that at a Vibe Band, you know, show.
Yeah, that'd be dope.
I hope by the end of September we are able to do that, because that's, you know, anyway, that's because they do like grown folks go-go is what I call it. Like it's a lot of old soul with that Pocket, you know. That's what I and it makes me smile. It makes me feel good. Anyway,
it does. Because I seen Sugar Bear at was it Sugar Bear and Red Essence? It was Sugar Bear EU. It was Sugar Bear and EU at off of U Street maybe like a year or two ago at U Street Music Hall, because U Street Music Hall used to bring like, you know, do old school go-go. They had Trouble Funk in there. They brought EU. So when I went to go see EU, I was like, oh, they couldn't play as long as they used to, but they was cranking. They was cranking.
Man, shout out to my man Big Rose. We used to go to Club U before they shut that down in the 90s. We used to be there. It felt like every weekend. I'm sure it wasn't, but it felt like every weekend. And because it was Sugar Bear when he was with what were they calling them? Hip Huggers. That's it, the Hip Huggers. And we were there almost every week, man. I mean, in that joint, that was like, it was my college days. That was perfect.
Yeah.
Because I was always too young and too uncool to be going to Ibex back in the day and Kilimanjaro. I was too young and too uncool and you know, but so as soon as I could get somewhere, you know, anyway, man. Anyway, you know,
definitely. Yeah, I definitely feel that.
So where are you, just real quick, man, where are you as an artist now with the whole quarantine and you know, with shows and performances, or what's coming next, and how are you all dealing with this? I mean, I say you all meaning like you, your crew, the artist community. What's going on with that, by the way?
We're still creating, you know. I'm still writing. We're still in the studio kind of like every other month, like mixing things down. Show wise, we haven't done any shows since last year. Sometime last year, yeah, year before last, one of those years. So we, I'm still writing, and when they turn the lights back on for us, then we have enough material to do shows and things of that nature, and we're still promoting, and we're still staying very vigilant on social media and things of that nature, and staying in touch with the people. So I'm still writing. I'm writing for another project now. Actually, I'm writing for 2 projects now. So it's just a slow burn.
I was gonna say most artists got like 3 projects, something they're working on. And
Yeah.
what are the venues? That's the other, man. Are the venues like what's happening? Because I know go-go is hard to find venues in the city anymore. Like what's happening with hip hop? Like,
well,
in this area
since the quarantine, of course.
I mean, even before that or separate
Before
from
that.
was it?
You know what? I think that a lot of unprofessionalism has happened within our hip hop community, where it stops the bars and venues to not have local artists or independent artists to set up a show there. It could be one bad apple in the bunch that stops the progress of those who just want to have a good time and bring their folks in and just, turn up and things of that nature. That may have stopped the progress because maybe there's a bad apple in a bunch. Then there's the other end of it that most venues don't want hip hop in there. It's either only way you can come in there on some hip hop is if you come in there with a band. They want that live feel. You can't come in there just with a DJ and a mic. That's it. So we started to basically just put on our own shows, and the relationships that I had with certain venues, I went to those people and like, hey, can I do something here? Like, yeah, sure, Enoch, anything you want. It was very welcoming. Like Songbird or the Lounge of 3, or any other venue that I knew of, and I had a good rapport with that manager or owner. Then that's what we would do the show at. But it's scarce, man. To now do shows in the old world with hip hop. You just had to go outside of DC and do other things, which shouldn't be like that, but sometime it is.
Well, look, man, I just want to thank you very much for joining me this morning, and as I'm just telling everybody, the as long as we keep doing this and hopefully expanding this platform, you're always welcome, man. And
I appreciate it.
I
appreciate it.
And
thank you so much, because I've caught a couple of your shows, especially the one with Chairman Fred Hampton. Like I caught that show and I was just like, hey, they got Fred. They got the chairman on like they got the chairman on YouTube. Like, okay. Cause the last time I saw the chairman Fred Hampton, Jr., when I saw him, I was in Philly years ago when we were doing the march for Mumia. And I was to be honest with you, these are 2 people that I was afraid to approach and say hi to them. It was 2 people that this happened to, and it was Freddie Fox. And and I saw Freddie Fox at the SOBs, and he was
Knuckles. That I gotta say, man, I'm sorry, man. That is my favorite rap nickname of all time. I just, for some reason, because of what I've always heard about him, and from folks like you who have met him, and I love his rap style. Even to this day, he tweets "Good morning hip hop" every morning. He's like Bumpy Knuckles, Freddie. Anyway, I'm sorry, man.
Dude. We were at the SOBs. We was on tour with KRS-One. We was at SOBs downstairs in the basement. And there's so many artists down there, from Wise Intelligent, Chuck D, Professor Griff. Everyone's down there. So I'm in the middle of the hallway, and I hear somebody say, clear the hallway. And I'm like, why? Freddie Fox is coming. So I was like, oh, that's my favorite artist. When Freddie started walking down the hallway, I saw how big he was. I just turned my head, so I ain't even look at him. I was like that intimidated from Freddie Fox, even though I know he's not, he's probably a warming brother. You could probably talk to him and things of that nature, which probably, but from what I was hearing, I was just like, I'm not speaking to Freddie. He might
You're not the
kirk
only
out
one.
on
I'm
me.
not gonna put you're gracious enough to share that. I won't put anybody else out there, but I've met a number of artists who have met him in person and had a very similar reaction. And one person said that actually he was performing that stereotype a little bit too much in their presence, so they didn't want to approach him then either. So they were just like, you know, he really was on that. You know,
Yeah.
who
So
he says he is. You know.
Freddie Fox, man, I love the
Get hot
brother.
with that 4 or 5 pepper steel, as he says, you know. So
and he performed
anyway,
that night. So he was already, you know, hyped. But when he was just
already,
walking down the hallway, he wasn't talking or anything. It was just his presence. And I was like, oh, so that was the same presence that I felt from Fred Hampton. But that present wasn't like I couldn't approach him. It was just like I've heard about him. Now I see him in the flesh. And I read about his father. I know what's going on. And I don't even know how to approach it. I don't even know if I should say hi, peace, what's up, brother? How you like? I didn't know. So I just played the back and watched him interact with everybody else. And I never said hi to him. I never, you know, thanked him for what he has done and things of that nature. And yeah, man.
Well, we are in some kind of touch. I don't claim to be in his inner circles by any means, but I will definitely pass this on to him. I can't obviously speak for either one of them, but especially, you know, especially not bump Nux, His Highness, His Honor. But I do think, you know, Fred Hampton Jr. is very approachable. And although I get your point, and in person, even interviewing him virtually, you know, so you could feel it coming through the screen a little bit, like there's that energy. It's like, woof. But he really, you know, he wants us to win. So he's good people all the way around, for sure.
All the way around.
But anyway, but I think he might be coming back to this platform in the near future. If things are, I don't know, he might be back soon. So cool. Some things are in the works that hopefully work out. So but either way, I'll definitely pass that on to him. That's a good story. That's a good story.
And I love the movie too. I thought the movie was fantastic, man. I was just,
well, we have our issues with that.
Yeah, I know.
But that's good. You know, it's all good. And
it's all good.
We certainly, more importantly, I think we certainly respect and love the Hamptons and Nakua and Jerry and those traditions. So you know, we don't all have to agree on the film. More importantly, it's I do think we all have to where I do think more of us could come together in agreement on is how the film is being used already. So whether we like it or not, I think a lot of different politically, at least, people are starting to use the film in some questionable ways that I think, you know, even if you like it, the point would be, if you like the film, I would think it's because you like what it's trying to represent about Hampton and his ideas and that history. I'm assuming that it's not because you want to glorify, you know, William O'Neill or that kind of thing, you or anybody else. But my point is that if you like the film, it's because of that. So we would want to try to uphold that kind of thinking in today's world. And I think there's some people already kind of scandalously in that kind of, you know, kente cloth congressional Black Lives Matter way, wrap themselves in the Hampton thing and be like, I'm really down for the people because I like this movie.
You know what I wanted, yeah, absolutely. Because what stood out for me, and I don't want to talk too long, but what stood out for me was that revisiting some of those thoughts and revisiting that he was murdered at 21. It's like, damn, what was I doing at 21? Oh, I was having a baby, or I was being a dad, or, you know what I mean? It was just so astonishing that, you know, just bringing up these things. And then you go back to your own history books, you go back to your own books that you collected, and you started to read more on it. And the thing that stood out to me about the film, I don't know if y'all touched about it or not. I wanted to know how it affect him, you know, because when that on the film, you could see that, hey, his dad got murdered while he was in the womb of his mom. Like, she was there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's how the film was saying, that she was there. You know, he was in the womb. But my thing is, how does that affect your child in the womb when they come, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Even though they're not physically here, but they emotionally can feel all these things as a child in the womb. The womb. So how does that affect him as a child and
Great
growing up as
question.
an adult? You know what I mean? And that's the thing that I always thought about and wondered about. Same thing with Malcolm X when his children saw him get murdered. It's like, how does that affect a child growing up?
I know there's been discussion of that, some of the discussion of Malcolm's daughters, including by them in, of that history. I don't recall so much in terms of Hampton, but that's maybe my bad memory. But what I would say, encourage you and anyone else that I believe I want to say Tuesday, but everyone should check me on Fred Hampton Jr.'s Instagram page. I believe they're going to have a live, or it's announced at least, if it's not going to be there, they're going to have a live discussion with him and his mother coming up.
Okay. I'm gonna
So,
definitely check that
maybe
out.
you can even put that in the chat, ask that, or maybe they'll bring it up. It obviously there has to have been an impact, but we didn't certainly cover that specifically, and I can't remember it ever happening. But
Gotcha.
that's just me and my bad memory.
It's all good.
So
I'll tune into it.
That's Roberto Duran. If you don't forgive me, the in the background. Anyway, I'm forgetting my last. There was something I wanted to bring up, but look, man. I just thank you very much, man. And just
Thank you.
you want to come back and we can work it out to this platform, please do. It's been a long time coming, and so this has been dope, man. I love it. So real quick, tell people where they can follow up with you and beyond just Googling your name, and then we'll catch you next time for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Enoch 7th Prophet on Instagram. ENOCH, the number 7 TH Prophet, PROPHET on Instagram, and on Facebook and Twitter is E7th P. So it's E, the numerical number 7 THP. And you can find the latest project on Apple Music, Bandcamp, Spotify, Google Play now. Yeah, that's where we at. So you can find all the projects there, especially Bandcamp.
Right on. Hey, man, thank you very much. If I haven't already, I can't remember. Speaking of memory, we'll add the links to the description here, and when it goes up on our at our Mix What I Like. So again, man, thank you very much, man. Until next time.
No problem, man. Thank you.
Man. Peace. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining us. Please come back at 4:00 Eastern, if at all possible, to for our discussion with Darren Mack and Jared Ware about Jailhouse Lawyers Speak. And then at 5:00 right after that, it's musical warfare. And I'm not even playing. I intend to win. I got my playlist ready. You see who I roll with musically. There's no slouches. So Doctors Ieli Ichile, Keto Swan, Otis Williams, whoever else is coming through tonight, get your playlist together, because I fully intend to win this battle. 5:00 Eastern for the Black Studies Matters Sound Clash Liberation Music Battle Royale. So I might even have to change a couple tracks now that we had this conversation, and I've been reminded of a couple of things. So definitely come back for that. And yes, I think I saw a quick question. Yeah. Roberto Duran, that's the puppy, the household puppy, named after the man himself, Manos de Piedra. And I admit it's a struggle in a household contradiction, because speaking of 80s babies, I was rooting for the brother, and I was rooting for the Maryland resident, Sugar Ray Leonard. And all due respect to my Panamanian in-laws, that's the side I was on. But household rules, happy wife, happy life. Roberto Duran, all due respect to the man, and the dog has his spirit. So yeah, Manos de Piedra, hands of stone, no question. Okay. Anyway, no doubt, Team Ieli, go Ieli. Anyway, thanks everybody for checking this out. Please like, share, subscribe, join, all that good stuff. I mixwhatilike.org as well. So many big things coming on this channel and with the expanded crew. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I didn't even mention it so far. If you have not already seen it, and I'm not even gonna lie. I mean, I don't deserve to have been first, but I, you know, I have that maybe it's the battle we got tonight. That competitive thing. I wish I was first to get the interview, but the brothers at Renegade Culture, to celebrate their 100th episode, got the first interview with recently released Jalil Muntaquin, political prisoner. You have got to check that out if you haven't already, and you've got to share it and make sure other people get to see it as well. Rumor has it that Brother Muntaquin is going to go to his nephew's podcast, the Hella Black podcast, next, and then, you know what I'm saying? You know, but go check. You got to go see that and spread the word that we have to celebrate these moments after so many years locked up, lifetimes worth of being incarcerated for all of our liberation. He's out. Check out that interview. The Black Power Media Collective Renegade Culture Show, and see that. So anyway, we'll be back here in a couple hours. Thanks again to everybody. As always, as Fred Hampton used to say to you, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. So peace, everybody. Thanks again to Enoch, and we'll see you in a couple hours. Peace, everybody. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.